CENTCOM visited the Israeli defense minister and Prime Minister Netanyahu twice last week. What does that tell you? Is it we got your back no matter what happens in Lebanon, or is it we don't have your back if you're going to move into Lebanon?
I think the issue right now is not whether or not we're going to support them. We've made it very clear that if they go into Lebanon and this war widens, that we will support them. So I don't think there's much question there. The problem is, how long can we keep all the ships at sea? You know, people seem to think that aircraft carrier battle groups are self-contained entities that can sail around for months at a time. That's not true. They have to be routinely provisioned with food, fuel, repair parts, everything that you can imagine. And I think the timing is very, very acute right now. And I think we're going to see this offensive into Lebanon start fairly quickly now, because we're telling Mr. Netanyahu, we can't sit around waiting for you to do something. So if you're going to do something, you'd better do it quickly, because we can't be out here much longer. So I think that's really the rub. The other thing is that we're worried about resupply, about the numbers of missiles that we have and replenishing those. And remember, we have lost a lot of materiel and missiles and equipment in Ukraine that we cannot easily replenish right now. So I think all of those matters are playing into the discussion. But no, we're going to support the Israelis. There's no question about that.
Colonel, between Ukraine and Israel, how low are America's military supplies?
Well, you know, Judge, I'd have to speculate, but I think they're probably dangerously low, given the destruction that we've witnessed. And I'm not sure that they were ever that high. You've got to understand that when, for instance, Desert Storm occurred back in 1990-91, we were sitting on mountains of munitions and equipment. Those mountains have largely gone away. We've either disposed of them because they were obsolete, or we've used them up in Ukraine in particular. So I don't think we have the limitless stocks that we once did. In fact, I think they're very low. And again, you're now pushing the Russians and potentially others into a position where they may feel they have to intervene to protect themselves. In other words, at some point, if you push hard enough, you get what you've seen in eastern Ukraine. Everybody knows this was not an unprovoked assault by Putin. He went in there as a matter of self-defense for Russia and to protect the Russians that were on the ground in eastern Ukraine. He discovered that what he thought was bad was infinitely worse than he anticipated. And so he's had to go through a massive military mobilization and buildup. Now he has a tremendous capability that he did not have in February of 2022. But we don't. We don't have that. We have no surge capability. If the president of the United States directed the Secretary of Defense, produce 2,000 missiles, 2,000 ATACMS, 2,000 Patriot missiles, 3,000 strike systems, SM-3, whatever it is. We can't do it very quickly. We don't have that ability.
Going back to Israel, the Israeli government leaked the fact that Prime Minister Netanyahu is contemplating firing Defense Minister Gallant and replacing him with another right-wing oriented person like Smotrich or Gavir, not Smotrich or Ben Gavir, but someone like that. Do we care? Is it going to make any difference? At the same time, this retired Major General Gadi Shamni says our soldiers are winning every tactical encounter with Hamas, but we're losing the war, and in a big way. This is a recently retired IDF Major General. What's your take on all of this, Colonel?
Well, I think in broad terms, the general is right. But I think it's a mistake to assume that every encounter is a win for the Israelis. It's not. And remember that they have very few people that they can afford to lose at any given point in time. The last time they went to war and suffered casualties on the scale that they're suffering or have been suffering to date was in 1973. They had 2,000 dead at that point, and that was a severe setback to Israel that only has a limited manpower pool based on the 6.2 million Jews that live there. And now we've had this issue of forcing portions of the Jewish population that don't want to fight as part of the IDF. So I think he's essentially correct. I don't think Gallant's departure will help Netanyahu. I also am not sure that it's going to make much difference to him. He's really in charge. And unless you remove him, I don't see much changing. And even then, the Israelis are in a tough position. They've essentially said that whatever happens, they can never accept a Palestinian state. And I think they all know that if they back away from their original goals, which is to essentially eliminate the Arab populations in the West Bank and Gaza, that's really where they want to go, and now in southern Lebanon, that they're going to have to accept something else. So I think the Israeli government, the Israeli people, the Israeli Defense Force, everyone is in the same boat. It's either we win or we go down with the ship, which is a terrible position to be in. And no one in Washington seems to be interested in helping them out. I mean, we think we're helping them by giving them anything they want. In fact, we've put them on a road to suicide, in my judgment.
Foreign Minister Gallant appears to have become, Defense Minister Gallant, the one that Prime Minister Netanyahu was contemplating replacing, seems to have become the voice of the IDF to the Prime Minister. We're exhausted. We're not winning. We're not ready to go into Lebanon. Are they ready to go into Lebanon as a fighting force?
Well, without the hard data, in other words, to look at the equipment sets and the numbers of people who've been killed and wounded as a result of the war in Gaza and whatever else has happened in terms of the Hezbollah strikes, I can't be absolutely certain, but I think I can say that this has lasted longer than any other conflict in which Israel has been engaged. Their economy is very definitely in ruins. They are subsisting on billions of dollars of American money to stay afloat and money from the diaspora, wealthy Jews overseas. So we know that. And then if you look at the numbers of people that they can mobilize and have in the IDF, a substantial number of these people have been wounded or killed. So I would say they probably aren't ready for what Hezbollah has to offer. But, I don't have the hard data. No one does. I mean, they're not going to volunteer the hard data to us.
Colonel, 2 nights ago on MSNBC, the former United